What is a scary, unsettling fact about you? I don't actually remember a decent chunk of my life. Whenever I talk about most of my childhood, I use words that leave room for mistakes, and I'm generally using memories and ideas that I've compiled from hearing other people say things about me. There are actually large chunks of facts about myself that I only think I know, and I don't have any personal confirmation of. I have two lenses in my right eye, so it focuses like binoculars. My doctor wrote a paper about it. Mostly blinded as a baby in my left eye. Doctor suspected my right lens split and then healed as two distinct lenses, better than 20/20 in my right eye. I have an enlarged aortic root. It's very unlikely, but I could spontaneously rupture, leading to the medical term instantaneous death. I would pass out, bleed to death, and then fall over, dead before hitting the ground. And it could happen at any time. My wife is very uncomfortable thinking about it. I'm a physician. If you're not being followed by a vascular surgeon, you should be. They're supposed to ultrasound it at regular intervals and can do a prophylactic surgery, sometimes can be done just through a catheter, with a graft if it does get too large. If it spontaneously ruptures, you still have a chance of survival if you live near a hospital with cardiothoracic surgery. I've seen it done in person. I inherited a lot of money from my grandmother about 2 years ago that no one in my family knew existed. I still don't know where it came from. Her lawyer wouldn't tell me, but it's in the upper seven figures. My father, her son, got the flat she owned, and we all thought that that was everything she had. Apparently it wasn't, but I haven't told anyone about it, and I don't plan on doing so either. I work a normal 8 to 5 desk job, rent a flat downtown of the city I live in, nothing expensive, and I live a normal life on my own. No partner or children, no expensive vacations. I don't even have a car, lol. I just don't feel comfortable sharing this secret, and the longer I keep it, the stranger it would get telling it. I pooped in my neighbor's backyard when I was 8 years old. Just gargoyled under his jungle gym and let loose. This is the first time I've talked about it in over 20 years. When I was born, I was so premature that my dad, who was quite dainty with his piano fingers, could slide his wedding ring up my arm to my shoulder. I had 6 toes on each foot at birth and got them cut off. You can see the place that they cut them at. Did they just rob you of your ability to run 20% faster? That's not how math works. It's about 16%. I'm an alcoholic. Gotten to the point where I was in jail and admitted to a psych ward once. My drinking life was wild and destructive. Decided I've had enough. After 2 failed attempts, I'm currently 36 days sober. The most sober that I've been in years. Then I woke up in the middle of surgery and threw a mayo pan at the nurse before they pinned me back down and upped my dosage of sedatives. Keynote, I still had retractors in, so I briefly looked like a Dead Space enemy. Have spotty memories of it. Sedation is very hit and miss with me. This happened 3 times. Once during surgery, once during a nerve burn, never went out, just paralyzed for about 3 minutes and started speaking during the procedure. The last was during a colonoscopy. Seriously painful, and asked the doctor if he was an old scout leader. He was laughing. Then he asked the nurse if I was within range for another dose of sedative. I have memories of fighting out from under the 6 dudes who were telling me I was okay and to calm down, and I was trying to apologize and tell them I can't calm down because I started waking up while I was intubated and felt like I was suffocating. I usually have good night vision, extra cones/rods, I forget which it is for low light, which means that I walk around in what other people consider complete darkness, able to see just fine. Add on to that I'm 6'10" and very large, and I'm basically a cryptid. You could single-handedly stoke interest in Bigfoot again if you're committed to night walks. When I was 18 years old, I was incarcerated for 3 years, found not guilty, and acquitted on all charges. I had roughly 12 charges, some of which would have led to life in prison had I been found guilty, but I knew I was innocent and decided to fight my case. My best friend at the time had been found guilty and given 3 life sentences. At one point, 1.5 years in, the DA offered me 7 years, and 2 felony strikes as a deal, or I could roll on my best friend and go home that same day. I passed and had to continue to fight my case, as I knew I didn't have any solid evidence against me. As my parents ran out of money for an attorney, I was eventually appointed a state-appointed attorney, who fought for me tooth and nail. He kicked ass, and he listened to everything I presented him, and about why I wasn't guilty. Mind you, I was 18, and I was surrounded by grown men, and I saw some horrific stuff. I kept in contact with my attorney afterward and informed them that I was still doing well out here. He died a couple of years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, I was no saint. I was in a gang and running the streets and up to no good, but I wasn't guilty of these charges. The part of me felt that maybe it was the universe's way of slowing me down, helping me get my shit together. Took a short while, but I've been on the right track. Since I was very young, age 9 or 10 I think, I've had thoughts that I was going to die young. The older I got, the age 24 just kept recurring. I'll be 24 in a few months. I have a few appointments for neurologists and for a suspected brain tumor coming up. Nothing is certain or set, but this all feels very weird. If it's any comfort, I have the exact same feeling at a very specific age kept recurring for me too. I passed that age a few years ago. I don't know if scary, unsettling quite fits here, but if I met you 3 years ago and then haven't seen you since then, I will remember your name and several random things that you told me. I've had to learn to play dumb and act like I don't remember certain things because it creeps people the F out and it gives a stalkery vibe. Though it is useful when I want to screw with somebody. I have a tendency to self-isolate, and it's damaged my very long-term friendships because people don't understand that it's not them, it's me, and that I really mean no harm. I have no ill feelings towards them. I kind of just want to recede into my own mind. I feel really bad about it, and I keep telling myself to reach out, but I don't. I have my appendix removed in England, so part of me is in Canada right now, and another part of me is in England. That's all I got, actually. Oh, we're keeping it safe. Don't worry. Not sure if it's scary, but my dad OD'd on drugs and died. I probably could have saved him. I went downstairs at like 1 a.m. to get a drink and saw the bathroom door closed with the light on. I thought about pounding on the door to scare him, which is something that I would do to mess with him. I walked up to the door, went to knock on it, but thought to myself, don't mess with him. And I walked away. Woke up later finding out that he was already dead from an overdose. It's definitely not your fault. You didn't know what was going on there. A very decent young man that worked for me and who I would consider a dear friend went off to college and was doing some side work. He was burning brush and he fell to the burn pit where he also received burns across 70% of his body. He was fortunate, however, as he was sent to the U.S. military burn unit in San Antonio, Texas, where they were able to provide him with the best burn care in the world. It was still a very painful and traumatic experience and expensive, as his dad told me that some of the bandages were $2,000 per bandage, and they had to be replaced daily. He was able to finish his degree and went on to get his master's, but he will not go out in public without a long-sleeve shirt or shorts. I asked him if he thought he would ever lose the self-consciousness of the scars, and he said that maybe one day he hoped he would, but he isn't there yet. Was co-convicted of manslaughter with diminished responsibilities when I was 16. It was quite high profile at the time in all the main newspapers, so I'll change a few details, but I'll give you the basis. A mutual friend of mine and my co-conspirator attacked my friend's young sister. We learned about it later in the day after it happened. We went to his home, argued with him, and then struck him once with the flat edge of a hammer. He died 3 to 4 days later after being put in a drug-induced coma. We were both arrested for murder and kept on bail for a year while CPS made their case. As we were both of decent homes with no previous experience, our lawyer argued that anyone would do the same given the situation, so murder became manslaughter, eventually. I was sentenced to 3 years and 18 months, and my friend got 5 years and served 3. Although I never hit him, they argued that I went along willingly, knowing that violence was probably going to happen. That's why I got time, even though I didn't technically touch him. A random guy in a bar bit part of my ear off. I went to a GP in agonizing pain. I vomited around 20 to 30 times consecutively on their restroom floor. I was told it was a UTI. Recovered a little. Next day I was in more pain, and after seeing a couple of doctors, I was rushed to the hospital for an emergency operation on testicular torsion. I ended up losing a testicle. Spent the night there before returning home. 1 day later, I met the love of my life, and I've never looked back since. But that 2 days of pain was something that nobody should have to go through. My immune system backfired and tried to punish me, and it almost succeeded. I now have to take multiple injections every single day, all day, or I'll die a painful death within a week. Just trying to write about diabetes in the most badass way. I talk with myself. Not the usual, you can do it type of stuff. Like, literally act like I'm two people having a conversation. I called him G. He's okay. Got E. coli poisoning at the age of 3 and was about to die. Slept for 3 whole days after 8 days of bleeding in and out of operation and such. Fact ain't really scary or nothing, but I can never get E. coli poisoning again. I'm immune. Despite me being in a good situation, I could right now pick up all of my shit, fall off, and be completely okay with not seeing my partner, family, friends, anything ever again and just start over. Probably a useful skill hundreds of thousands of years ago. Not so useful now. I sometimes smile and laugh at tragic news or events, especially if I see someone else crying and or is the bearer of the bad news. I hate it. However, I think I understand why it happens. It's some sort of trauma defense mechanism because something is expecting me to feel saddened and to frown. I used to be a prison officer. One morning, my partner went to wake up a prisoner early in the morning so that they had time to make their court appearance later in the day. Meanwhile, I stayed in the control room overlooking the wing. She opened his cell door and discovered that he was hanging by his shoelace. We called it in. She cut him down and started CPR despite seeing the blood in his eyes and his throat all swollen up. He was dead. Training and procedure stated it didn't matter, and we have to do what we can. So I ran at full speed to assist, and she was losing it. He's f***ing dead. What do we do? I told her to stop so she could have a minute and look it over. I started chest compressions, and I felt the ribs snap and break. I gave him mouth-to-mouth and continued CPR. After about 6 minutes or so, the officers arrived in the scene and took over. Everyone was talking about how we get the rest of the week to recover and asking if we were okay. I felt fine. I told people this, and the response was, it hasn't hit you yet. A few hours went by, and the officer I was with was in tears. I still felt okay. Next few days went by, and the officer I was with took a few days off. I was fine. She tells me how she wakes up in the middle of the night while half asleep, sees her dressing gown hung up, and in her half-sleepy state thinks it's a hanging body. She sits up screaming. I am fine. Weeks go by, and I still have no feeling towards the matter. It's been 3 years, and I don't give the slightest crap about the entire thing. Turns out, death doesn't really faze me in the slightest. The only thing that stuck with me is the feeling and the sound of his bones cracking and snapping. I felt the vibrations up to my arms for days afterwards. Death doesn't bother me, but bones cracking as I try to bring him back to, I'm pretty sure that ain't normal.